In this video, we will begin development of our first Smart Connector extension. But before we start developing, we have to set up our dev environment. Even before we start setting up, however, we have to ask ourselves a few questions. What are we building and why are we building it? What are the needs that need to be met and how can we accomplish this? In order to figure this out, we have to first consult our problem statement. For the purposes of this training, a requirement exists to obtain current weather data, such as temperature, pressure, and humidity, and a 3-day weather forecast, including date, high and low temp, pressure, humidity, and forecast from a third-party weather service. This data is to be served so it can be consumed by a generic EWS client. The EWS client should also be able to change the target city of the forecast, but not inadvertently change any of the data obtained from the web service. If latency exists between changing the city and weather data getting updated, the EWS data should report that in some way. The server should also maintain historical data for the current conditions. To accomplish this, we will need an EWS server to serve the data. If you recall from our previous video, we talked about the different approaches to data management: synchronous, asynchronous, and hybrid. For this project, we will use the hybrid data management that has been described previously, with two processors, a setup processor and an update processor, and then a custom set values processor in the EWS server to manage the change of city request. We will pull weather data from the free weather service openweathermap.org. You will need to register as a developer for this site and obtain your own API key. Please pause the video now in order to do so. If you have obtained the API key, you can consult this handy diagram to better understand how the extension is going to work, what different parts are involved, and how those parts are communicating with each other. Before we code anything, we need to configure Visual Studio 2017 to have access to the Smart Connector's public libraries. These libraries are distributed via NuGet packages hosted on a private feed at www.myget.org. To access this feed, you need to register at www.smartconnectorserver.com. After you have authenticated on this site, click Send a Request to Become a Smart Connector Developer link and supply the required information. Please pause the video now in order to do so. Hey, welcome back. After you are granted access by Building Labs, you will receive an email directly from MyGet. Follow the instructions contained in that email and then continue on with the steps on this slide. As you follow the steps, it's important to note that in the link on step 4, the Your API Key field is the personal API key you get from MyGet. When all is said and done, click Update and your dialog should match this image. Once you have done that, click OK. And now we're going to transfer over to the Visual Studio 2017 IDE. This is the preferred way to write a Smart Connector extension, and this is the tool that is being used at Schneider Electric. As long as you can compile a class library that works for .NET, the tools that you have should be fine. Now, it's tempting to start with a class library type project, but what we're going to do is include unit tests later, which are their own separate type. So what we actually want to do is that we want to start with an empty solution. So you create new project. Now these are the types that we can all look through, but again, we want to try to look to start an empty solution. So go down on the left side, Other project types, Visual Studio Solutions, blank solution. Now you want to give this a proper name, something like Smart Connector Weather Samples, but I believe I have this on my computer, so it will be called Smart Connector. Let's see. Smart connector weather samples. That should do just fine. And now we need to add a project to our empty solution. So go to the right pane in the Solution Explorer, right-click, Add, New Project. This is not the only way to add a project to your solution, but this is a quick and easy way. You want to do class library.NET Framework. This one, and not this one, .NET Standard. .NET Framework. You can name it however you wish. What should we go with? Smart Connector dot first weather extension, and then pick the target .NET framework that you want to have your extension work with, and click OK. Now we want to add some data annotations. To do this, you have to access assembly.cs. The easiest way to do this is just go under Properties, click on it, and add a meaningful definition for assembly title, assembly description, assembly configuration, assembly company, and so on and so forth. Again, not necessary, but it's preferred. This will show up in the Smart Connector portal on your local host for all the extensions that you create that have this file. Now that we have completed setup of our development environment, in our next video we will begin development of our first processor, the setup processor.